Yo, today we are going to answer the question, how much Bitcoin do you need to be in the top 1%? This is a topic that you guys absolutely love when we cover. We haven't covered it in over 2.5 months, I think. So we're going to talk about that today. As Bitcoin just crossed 100K for the first time ever, everybody is now thinking it's too difficult to get into the top 1% of Bitcoin. I think guys, like, that could be true maybe 5 years from now, but as it stands right now, yes, the window is closing, but you could still definitely get to the status that you want to get to, which is the status of a whole coiner, right? I think we have reached peak whole coiners. I don't think there's going to be more whole coiners than there is today, and I'll get to my reasoning as to why that is. And these are all kind of things that I've been learning since, being in Bitcoin for 8 years now. I got in 2016, and I've been able to gather a bunch of different data points to basically answer the question, how much Bitcoin you need to be in the top 1%. Now, if you're part of one of the earlier classes, class of 2024, class of 2023, or class of 2022, don't worry, because I still have data in terms of Bitcoin's long term of where this is going. Because the fact is that the world has not waken up to the power of Bitcoin. The world has still not realized that Bitcoin is literally meant to go up forever, Laura. And that's an opportunity for anyone to get on the Bitcoin standard. So anyways, no more delay. I do want to bring up my legendary co-host, Optimus Fields, who's always optimistic. And of course, our special guest for today, Nikolaus Hoffman. He's the head of news over at Bitcoin Magazine. We absolutely love those guys. So no more delay. Let's jump straight into it. First, let's start with the memes, shall we? This is a very famous meme that has been just making the rounds. I believe this is like from the 2017 era or 2018 era. It's called the Citadel. And of course, it has like the Pepe the Frog meme. And then on the right, it says the year 2028 of the second age, one Bitcoin is now worth $1 million adjusted for inflation. And then it starts from the bottom, right? It says the no coiner. Then it has, the rope, the cope, the hope, and it's like 0.001, 0.01, 0.1. And then I can't say that word on YouTube, but let's say the minimum stack, which is the one Bitcoin. They call it the barons. Then the lords, the so-called the break it stack. It's the 5 BTC. And then the Earl stack is between 5 BTC and 10 BTC. And then the generational wealth is the 10 BTC, or they call it the Marquise. And then you have the princes, which is between 10 BTC and 50 BTC. And then between 50 BTC and 100 BTC, you have the dukes. And then at 100 BTC, you have the kings. And then between the kings and the emperors, you need about 500 BTC. And to be an emperor, the so-called whale stack, you need 1,000 BTC. And then they have these two guys up top. If you guys are familiar with internet culture, you know who they are. I think they passed away recently too. It's kind of sad. But anyways, you need 10,000 BTC to be, at the top of this castle. Anyways, here's more information from Glassnode, and it kind of breaks it down into the shrimp, the crab, the octopus, the fish, the dolphin, the shark, the whale, the humpbacks. To be a shrimp, you need less than 1 Bitcoin. To be a crab, you need between 1 to 10. To be an octopus, you need 10 to 50. To be a fish, you need 50 to 100. To be a dolphin, you need 100 to 500. To be a shark, you need 500 to 1,000. To be a whale, you need 1,000 to 5,000. And to be a humpback whale, you need 5,000 BTC. Now, what's really interesting here is the numbers, right? So it's estimated that roughly 22 million people are estimated to be a shrimp. So someone that has less than 1 Bitcoin. There's roughly 500,000 people that are crabs that have 1 to 10 Bitcoin. There's roughly 72,000 people that have 10 to 50 Bitcoin. There's roughly 11,000 people that have 50 to 100 Bitcoin. There's roughly 10,000 people that have 100 to 500 Bitcoin. There's roughly 1,500 people that have 500 to 1,000 Bitcoin. There's roughly 2,000 people that have 1,000 to 5,000 Bitcoin. And there's roughly 220 people that have more than 5K Bitcoin. Now, this kind of dives into a little bit more detail regarding this specific subject matter. Again, this chart was created back in 2017. A lot of this data was created back in 2017. It gave me a lot of the motivations, right, to stack as much as humanly possible throughout the years. And it kind of breaks it down. So I'm going to go to all the way up to the top 10%. But essentially, to be in the top 0.001% of Bitcoin hodlers, you need roughly 7,021 Bitcoin. There's roughly 250 Bitcoin owners that fit into that category. To be in the top 0.003% percentile, you need 2,189 Bitcoin. Roughly 500 Bitcoiners or institutions fit into that category. To be in the top 0.01%, you need 433 Bitcoin. Roughly 1,750 Bitcoiners, 50 Bitcoin owners fit into that category. To be in the top 0.03%, you need 215 Bitcoin. Roughly 5,000 Bitcoiners fit into that category. To be in the top 0.1%, you need 89 Bitcoin. Roughly 17,500 Bitcoiners fit into that category. To be in the top 1%, you need 15 Bitcoin. Roughly 225,000 Bitcoiners fit into that category. To be in the top 5%, you need 3.99. Roughly 250,000 Bitcoiners fit into that category. To be in the top 1%, you need top 10%, I apologize. You need 1.28 Bitcoin, and roughly 250,000 people fit into that category. And then it just goes down from here. To be in the top 50%, you need 0.037. To be in the top 20%, you need 0.56. Now, I get what a lot of you guys might be thinking. I understand, especially if you're part of some of the newer classes. You're like, Nico, these are absurdly large numbers. What the F are you talking about? This is insane. And what I got to say is, don't worry, because we still have a huge, huge road in front of us. So what am I talking about? This is data from Credit Suisse, and it breaks out the number of millionaires around the world. And I'm just going to focus on the lower kind of part. So people that are worth between $1 to $5 million. There's 54 million people worldwide that fit into that category. How many Bitcoin are there? There's 21 million. How many Bitcoin are lost? There's roughly 4 million estimated that are lost. So it's really 17 million. So if you do the math, if every millionaire worldwide wanted to buy just one Bitcoin, they literally physically could not. So this is why we keep saying so many times that, do whatever it takes to get to that one Bitcoin. I know it's I know it's very expensive. It's $104,000. We have been telling you for years now, but if you put your mind to it, you work really hard. I think you're going to have a 2-year window. Next year, we're going to have the parabola year. And then historically, if Bitcoin continues to follow its historical patterns, 2026 is the year of a bear market. And I think you're going to have another opportunity to buy roughly 100K Bitcoin, maybe even less than that. So you have 2 years to do whatever it takes to get to that one Bitcoin category, because I think that if you reach that one Bitcoin category, I think you're gonna be good. You're gonna be set for life. If Michael Saylor's prediction, and this is his base case, this isn't even his bull case, of $13 million Bitcoin by the year 2045 comes true, that's $13 million per coin. $13 million per coin right now to be considered top 1% in the United States, you need roughly a $11 million, $12 million net worth, right? So if you're thinking long-term with one Bitcoin, acquiring one Bitcoin today, could put you in, the top 1% in the future. And if you don't believe me, again, ask any Bitcoiner when they were getting in. I got in 2016. I think my first Bitcoin was under 1,000. It's like $650 or $700. And I was like, dude, I'm so late, because I knew people that were buying for less than 100, or I knew people that were buying for a couple hundred. And I was like, I'm super late. And then, I met people from the class of 2017, and they were buying in the thousands, and it was the same thing. Like, they thought they were super late. And then I met people in the class of 21, and they were buying between 16 and 60, and they thought they were super late. Now we're sitting on 100,000. It's like, were you really late? Like everyone's made, like the class of 21, like even if you bought the top, and I totally bought the top myself, I always buy the top. I think it's like a rite of passage for Bitcoiners. You'd be up right now, like hardcore, right? And then here comes like the last thing that I want to show you guys, which is the Luke Broyles data set. And he actually wrote a great article, which you guys published over at Bitcoin Magazine. And the theory of the case that he makes is essentially it's very difficult for human beings to think in exponential terms. And like if you think about technology, if you think about wealth building, if you think about like health, if you think about like anything, it's very difficult to think in exponentials. Like if you look at like technological progress and human wealth, the vast majority of it has happened in the last 100 years. So, 5,000 years of human history, wealth building, technological progress, healthcare progress, the vast majority of it has happened literally in the last 100 years. And it's going to just continue to accelerate. It's going to continue to get more and more exponential from here. You have the introduction of AI. That came out of nowhere. Like people forget, like 3 or 4 years ago, like there wasn't an application, whether it's Grok or ChatGPT, that you can just ask it questions to, and it literally just answers like a human, right? That didn't exist, right? And I'm old enough to remember, like when I was in high school, it was the introduction of the internet. So like, I was using like BlackBerry Messenger and like whatever. And then the people that are older than me, they didn't even have the internet in high school, right? So it's like, could you imagine a world without the internet? So like, this is what I'm talking about. It's very difficult for us to wrap our heads around that. Now, the reason I'm telling you guys this is to kind of give it a little bit of context before I read you guys these numbers. But here's Luke Broyles' long-term case in terms of how much Bitcoin you'll need for like the different classes in society, whether you're a multimillionaire, a billionaire, a mega billionaire. And these are his cases. And I think he has a really, really good case, because if we're right about Bitcoin and Bitcoin becomes the global reserve currency, or Michael Saylor's case where it becomes such a huge percentile of just global assets, I think he's absolutely right, especially long term. And if you're young, if you're still in your 20s or you're in your late teens, like, man, you have so much life ahead of you, right? So anyways, it breaks it down into different tiers. So on the very top, you have this very small percentile, what Luke calls the nation/mega rich. And he said there's going to be 10 entities that fit into that category. And the average holding per entity is roughly 140,000 Bitcoin. To be a multi-billionaire/small nation, you need roughly 8,000 Bitcoin. Roughly 200 entities fit into that category. To be a billionaire/mega corporation, Luke believes there's going to be 5,000 Bitcoin, 5,000 entities that fit into that category, and roughly you need 120 Bitcoin to fit in there. Now, this is where things like get exciting, in my opinion. To be a multi-millionaire/large corporation, 65 entities will fit into that category. You need 10 Bitcoin. To be a millionaire /regular company, roughly 80 million entities will fit into that category. You need 0.06 Bitcoin. To be in the upper middle class, you need 0.008 Bitcoin. To be middle class, you need 0.001. Now, I mean, it kind of makes sense, because if we hit, I think it's just a matter of time before we hit dollar sat parity, eventually, maybe 15 years from now, whatever, $10 million per coin, 1,000 sats is going to be $1,000, right? So Luke's making the case, basically, you want to be a millionaire, just get 0.06 Bitcoin, which is the equivalent to 6 million Satoshis. Once Bitcoin reaches dollar sat parity. Now, I don't know how long that's going to take. Saylor makes the case that it's going to be year 2045 when Bitcoin hits, $13 million per coin. But I don't think that's such a crazy, prediction or a crazy, outlook. I think if you watch some of Tuur Demeester's, and I was actually talking to Dr. Jeff Ross yesterday, episode's going to be released later on this week, and he was like mentioning the early videos of Tuur Demeester talking about nation state adoption, corporate adoption. And mind you, this is when Bitcoin was like hundreds of dollars per coin. This was before the fork wars. This was before, large institutional mining companies and all the expansion of the hash rate. Like Bitcoin was a lot more uncertain back then, but because Chur understood the game theory, he realized that it was inevitable. So I agree with Luke. What I can't tell you is the time frame. What I can't tell you is the time frame. I have no idea, and no one else does, right? So yeah, guys, you love this content, you love this data, you guys, love these types of shows every time we do it. So we felt like we would give that to you guys today. Let us know what you think in the comments. Let us know how much Bitcoin you need to be in the 1%. Let us know in the chat, or if you didn't catch the video live, let us know in the chat, in the comment section. So anyways, I'm gonna pass it on. Nicholas. Wow, I love that full name. My name is Nicholas too, but I spell it a little bit differently. So Nicholas, what are your thoughts on this, man? You've been in the trenches with us for a long time. We've all built our careers, in the same industry, same field. We've all seen each other grow. What are your thoughts on this, man? Because it's a fascinating subject. It's an interesting subject. People love to talk about it, love to hear about it. So what's your take?
I mean, yeah, like personally, when I first got into Bitcoin, it was 2017. So I only got in a year after you. And when I first found Bitcoin, it was like $6,000. And then I had that whole entire bear market, 2018 through 2020, to accumulate at around like 3, 4, or 5K, in that price range. So I definitely felt the FOMO, but in particular, in regards to this is also a stat that was circulating back then. And I think back at the time, if I remember, people were tweeting about like, oh, you just need 0.03 Bitcoin to be in the 1% or something, or something around that. And I was like, that's super achievable. So I would setting those short goals in, part of like your longer term plan of achieving one full Bitcoin, like it just makes you want to grind so much. Like I was, working extra hours. I was working weekends. I was doing odd jobs like shoveling snow, raking leaves. I was babysitting. I was doing whatever I could to get a hold of that 1% number, and then, work my way up from there. Because like the more you study Bitcoin and the more you really research it and get a good grasp and understand it, you really start to, and, you look at these numbers, like everything you just showed, you really start to take in and understand this absolute scarcity. And Bitcoin is a very unique asset in the way that, unlike gold and other assets, when there is an insane amount of demand from everybody, they can't make any more than 21 million Bitcoin. There will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin. my chair is it wasn't too expensive. I think it was only like $60, but yeah, the artificial scarcity of Bitcoin just constantly blows my mind. You look today and you see like the ETFs, like BlackRock yesterday bought 733 million worth of Bitcoin, and they've had like 14 or 15 days in a row of just constant inflows. And like you see it reflect in the price of the price of this asset skyrocketing. And there are lots of people out there who are getting priced out of owning a full Bitcoin. I think we've already hit that threshold, to be honest. Like the average salary in America is like around $60,000. These people are bringing in 60K a year. They have families they have to feed, they want to take vacations. They have car loans, credit cards, they have like their lives to live. They don't have 100K a year to pile into Bitcoin. They could definitely do it over the course of a few years and get that one Bitcoin, especially, we go into a bear market in 2026 or late 2025, which I'm totally expecting. There's a lot more people today, and I can ramble on and about this, or we can talk about it more later, specifically in regards to like the ETFs and institutional adoption. But every single day, I'm just seeing more and more signs of people, not just getting like, I'm not saying people are becoming more like Bitcoin maximalists, but people who used to FUD Bitcoin or be skeptical of it are a lot more accepting of it now. when I talk to people about Bitcoin, they're not like saying, oh, it's a scam right away, or, oh, energy FUD, or insert whatever other FUD, there is. People are a lot more open to it and accepting about it. And even BlackRock put out a video yesterday just going into in depth on that. That was super bullish. And I just think that people are starting to realize that they need to get some Bitcoin. And once they realize that, Bitcoin's a game of accumulation, and you need to be stacking Bitcoin, and just every single day, make sure you have more sats than you did the day before.
Absolutely, 100%. Great words of wisdom from Mr. Hoffman. Opti, what's your take on this, brother? I mean, I remember the first years, I did the same thing, Nick. I remember I was so hyper obsessed. I was taking 80 to 90% of what I was making, and I was just dumping it into Bitcoin, like doing whatever it takes. Getting my which I think is a rite of passage, to be honest. Like, my account would like always go into the negative, my bank account, and it doesn't happen as much these days, but I remember for the first 2-3 years, I would just wake up every single day with this like dreading anxiety, like, how do I stack as much Bitcoin as humanly possible?
Yeah.
So I've
No,
Go ahead.
sorry. I was just gonna say, like, I know, like, we used to joke around on Bitcoin Twitter way back in the day, like posting our screenshots of our bank accounts in the negatives, because we would always be having these stack offs on Twitter. And dude, I was a total fiend for Bitcoin. Like, I needed more and more of it. Like, I would gladly work weekends and just do whatever I could to get more dollars to earn more sats. And like, I know that, like, a lot of people think this is like really stupid, and my opinions may or may not have changed on it, over the years. But like, back in 2017, 2018, when I first found like the stock to flow model, I was like, I fully believed in it. And I was like, oh my gosh, Bitcoin's going to be at 100K in a few years. Like, this is something that I cannot wait on. And like, it drastically, it will cause people to really rethink their life decisions. Like, for example, at the time, I was, when I found Bitcoin, I was a senior in high school. And when I found Bitcoin and I really started understanding the scarcity of it and the value of it and where it was going, I was like, I kind of need to like change the course of my life. So like, I kind of decided not to go to a 4-year university, and I decided to work instead so I could accumulate cheap Bitcoin, because I knew by the time of my,
Who told you to do that, Nick?
I mean, I had tons of people telling me. I know you were whispering in my ear, telling me I should go all in on Bitcoin instead of school. But yeah, I mean, I just saw it, and I recognized the opportunity cost, and I said, this cannot wait 4 more years or 8 more years, because I was planning on becoming a physical therapist, so that was going to take like 8 years. I was like, in 8 years, Bitcoin's going to be like, it could be like $1 million plus. I don't know at that time. So I was like, Bitcoin's super cheap. It's like 3K per coin. I need to go all in on this right now. And I think over time, I've only seen more and more young people do that and say that. And I think the scarcity of this asset, and when they understand where they know where it's going, I really think is going to cause people to rethink their life choices and kind of prioritize accumulating Bitcoin so they can have that nest egg going into the rest of their life.
Absolutely. I think that incredible point. Opti, man, dude, so many memories. I'm thinking about Nick's talking about this. I'm thinking about the 2018 days when we were all in the trenches, all holding it down on Bitcoin Twitter. Bitcoin collapsed from 20K to 3,500, took an entire year. And you make friends in the bear market. That's the way it is. You forge these relationships that you never forget. So Opti, what's your take on this, man? How much Bitcoin does someone need to be in the top 1%? And what are some words of wisdom that you can drop on the audience that perhaps is from one of the earlier classes? Are they too late? Is it too late for them, Opti?
Well, I mean, I think you put the data out there, so it's hard to really like argue the data there. To be in the 1%, you have to have a certain amount of holdings. But I think the kind of theme of what we're talking about is, once you kind of understand Bitcoin and you understand digital scarcity and you realize there's not that much Bitcoin, even though people like to kind of compare themselves to the top wealthiest, people in the world, it kind of does change the conversation where it's just like, okay, maybe I might not ever get to that 1% because I think rich people are always going to be rich. You know, you kind of have to have a lot of capital to come into Bitcoin to be in the 1%. But for average person, kind of what Nick was saying, and I think we all kind of go through this. You come into Bitcoin, you start to understand Bitcoin, and then once it really clicks in your mind, you start to do whatever you can to acquire as much as possible, and it really does change the trajectory of your life. And I think that's kind of where we are right now. The culture that we see right now is very superficial. It's very much, you know, based on this idea that most people are living paycheck to paycheck. And when you understand Bitcoin, you might still be living paycheck to paycheck, but at least you are building a savings over time. And personally, before I found Bitcoin, you know, I was doing a pretty much normal job, but I just couldn't save anything. And just changing my personal behaviors and my perspective on savings and the cash flow coming in, it literally altered the course of my life. So for anyone out there, if you're newer to Bitcoin and you're still maybe fully haven't grokked Bitcoin, you're still kind of learning about it. The main point here is just a very simple mean of live below your means. You know, save as much as humanly possible, put it into Bitcoin, and over the long term, your life is going to get that much better. And there's all kinds of means in Bitcoin. You know, everyone's kind of trolling Nick right now because he's got a nice chair, and they're like, I thought we were selling our chairs. We must be in a bull market. But that's the stuff you kind of think about. And actually, I saw a tweet on Twitter like right before we went live where it was something on the lines of like, Bitcoiners are like the cheapest rich people I know. And that's kind of like the model with a lot of Bitcoiners. It's like, yeah, do I really need to buy this stuff, or am I just kind of building a nest egg for my future? And I think that is the fundamental shift, is like, think long term. Don't get caught up in the fiat rat race where you need, got to keep up with the Joneses. You're buying all this wealth and status symbols to portray like you have some money. The real thing is, can you survive on your savings in the future? And I think that's what most people need to kind of fundamentally shift. Yes, we like to kind of compare ourselves with like the richest people. It's definitely like an ego thing. It's like, man, can I ever get in the 1%? I want to be the new financial elite. And I think in reality, the main thing is kind of the like FU money meme, where it's like, okay, how much wealth do I need to be able to do what I want to do with my life and kind of not get caught in the rat race? And I think that number is different for every single one of us, but it is kind of fun to compare your stack to like the richest people in the world and the richest people in Bitcoin. But I think it's all like an ego thing. At the end of the day, it's get your cash flow up, save in Bitcoin, and store that Bitcoin securely. And that's what matters. And just keep repeating. I think the message is, don't take your foot off the gas. You always want to be saving in Bitcoin. I mean, Nick has, I think, the most goat meme ever, which is, I don't stack sats for my first name. I stack sats for my last name. And that's one of my favorite things to always remember, is just like, okay, this is generational wealth after all, and I want to hold this for as long as humanly possible. Obviously, I want to live my life as well. I don't want to push my life into the future for some imaginary day I might not get to, but I do also want to continue to build a nest egg. And I think it's important for people to kind of switch their operating system from the fiat culture to a Bitcoin standard, where, hey, I want to hold on to Bitcoin for as long as possible. This is going to be extremely valuable in the future. And that's the most important message, is I don't think we understand how high this is going to go. And you want to just hold on to whatever stack you have right now on a long enough time frame. I think it will be a substantial amount of wealth. And that's kind of how we should be thinking about this.
100%.
I just want to touch on one point there. It's like, I think that's like a good point that you brought up, is like, when I was looking at these numbers, and I'm sure like most people watching this are probably thinking the same thing, but it's like, when I was looking at the numbers of like what it takes to be in like, the quote 1%, I wasn't envisioning myself as like, oh, I'm going to be this new financial elite. It was more kind of like, I just need to secure, like what are my goals? And my goals are to like save enough money to have like a family, a car, a house in the future. Like, those are three like very basic things that most people want. How am I going to get there? Because I need to save money, and I need to beat the rate of inflation. I can't save in fiat, so I need to save in something harder. I need to save in something better. So Bitcoin was just the best option on the market, like by far, like no close competitor to it. So it's like, how can I secure my future and my future family's future And that is by mass accumulating Bitcoin. It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to, be flying around on private jets and, being in the 1% or anything. Like, I'm not going to end up working for Larry Fink at BlackRock. You know what I mean? It was kind of like, how do I just secure my own future?
Absolutely. No, it's as simple as that. And I think the American dream is live and well as long as you're using Bitcoin as your unit account versus the dollar. It's totally achievable to get that house, to get that, independence. But you have to use Bitcoin as your unit of account. You have to switch over to the Bitcoin standard. Anyways, guys, there's almost 2,000 of you guys watching live just on YouTube alone. We just broke 600 live viewers. Help us break 200 likes within the first 40 minutes of the show. So smash that like button if you guys are enjoying the show. Shout out to our Rumble audience and our X audience as well. We have so much to get to. We have a video of Blackrock, basically just making the case as to, why you should buy Bitcoin. And during the news segment, we're going to talk about the SEC Commissioner, Caroline Crenshaw, who voted against the spot Bitcoin ETF. She will not be renominated to her position. We've been saying elections have consequences. This was a huge election for the Bitcoin industry, the regulatory environment. And I think 2025 is going to be awesome. In terms of, the ability for entrepreneurs to do what entrepreneurs do best, which is build. But anyways, guys, before we jump into today's show, and of course, during the culture segment, we're going to talk to Nikolaus. He recently just launched his personal X account. For anyone who doesn't know, Nikolaus is a genius when it comes to X. He, most of the Bitcoin magazine, things that they're doing in terms of their tweets and all that stuff. That's Nick behind the scenes, right? So he just launched his personal account, and definitely give it a follow. Nick's one of the best in the industry when it comes to this type of stuff. So we're going to talk about all that on today's show. Before we get started, I do want to give a shout out to Simply Bitcoin's lead sponsor. Of course, I'm talking about Bitcoin Well. Bitcoin Well is a publicly traded company coming out of Canada that recently expanded to all 50 US states. Buy real Bitcoin, enable your independence with the fastest and safest way to buy Bitcoin on-chain or via the Lightning Network in Canada or the USA. What makes Bitcoin Well different is it's completely non-custodial, meaning as soon as you buy Bitcoin on Bitcoin Well, when the funds clear, they go straight to your self-custody Bitcoin wallet address. They do not allow you to leave the Bitcoin on the exchange. Also, if you're a higher net worth individual looking to buy $50,000 worth of Bitcoin or more, and you're tired of dealing with the Coinbase UI, you're tired of dealing with robots, you're tired of dealing with terrible customer support via email, and you want to deal with a human being, you got to check out Bitcoin Well Infinite. If you want a human being that you can call to buy, sell, or you have any questions about Bitcoin, the Bitcoin Well Infinite product is for you. To get started, go to bitcoinwell.com/OTC, or you can send me an email at nico@bitcoinwell. Also, every time you buy Bitcoin on Bitcoin Well, you earn Bitcoin Well points. And essentially, you can use those points towards the Wishing Well contest. Get your Lightning wallets ready. First person to scan the QR code has won 500 sats. You win every time you toss a coin into the Wishing Well. You earn the points for it every time you buy Bitcoin on Bitcoin Well. And if you use promo code SimplyBTC, again, SimplyBTC, to sign up to bitcoinwell.com today, you get 3 tosses into the Wishing Well. All right, everybody, let's get to the numbers. We have lots to talk about. I want to tell you guys about our sponsor, Stampseed. Is your Bitcoin in cold storage really secure? Are your seed words really secure? Stampseed's do-it-yourself kit has everything you'll need to hammer your seed words into commercial-grade titanium plates instead of writing them down on paper. Don't do that. Paper sucks. You want to literally stamp your seed into this plate of titanium. Your words are actually stamped into the metal plate with this hammer. So once your words are in, they aren't going anywhere. No risk of the plate breaking apart and your pieces falling everywhere. Titanium stamp seeds will survive nearly triple the heat produced by a house fire. They are also crush-proof, waterproof, non-corrosive, and most importantly, because this is generational wealth,
time proof. All things that paper is not. Allowing you to hodl your Bitcoin for the long haul. I mean, here is the plate that they crushed. They put in water. They put a blowtorch to it. And as you can see, the words have survived. Stamp your seed on StampSeed. And you can use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on their store. Head over to StampSeed.
All right, everybody, scan the QR code right now. Use promo code SIMPLY. It'll take you directly to StampSeed website. Use promo code SIMPLY again to get 15% off. At the time of recording, the Bitcoin price is $104,600. Block height 875,330 sats per dollar, under 1,000, 956 sats per dollar. Market cap 2.07 trillion. Bitcoin versus gold market cap 11.25%. Percentage issued 94.27%, decline from all-time high, negative 3.4%. Realized monetary inflation continuing to take fiat currencies to absolute school. It's sitting pretty at 1.14%. So even if central banks manage to get the inflation rate back to 2%, Bitcoin is still winning. Anyways, guys, so Nick was mentioning it earlier in the first segment about BlackRock releasing a video in regards to Bitcoin. We actually have that video for you guys. We're going to play it, and then we're going to have a discussion about it. Let's check it out.
We've all heard about Bitcoin, but what exactly is Bitcoin? Let's start at the beginning, around 100,000 years ago. Throughout history, we've used all kinds of objects to help make transactions and store value. From seashells, to shiny metals, to paper notes. That's because the value isn't just in the object itself, it's in how much we agree the object represents. So the object can be many things, even, as it turns out, a string of digital code. The internet changed everything. It connected the world, changing how we communicate, work, shop, and manage finances. It also opened the door to a new kind of currency and asset. Enter Bitcoin, a digital currency not governed by banks or governments, but by its global community of users. And that provided new potential benefits. Bitcoin exchanges happen person to person, anywhere in the world, in near real time and for near zero transaction costs, saving money, time, and opening financial opportunity to those without access to a banking system. Bitcoin has a fixed supply of 21 million Bitcoin.
All right, I'm literally falling asleep. Dude, I can't believe BlackRock, came out with that video. Like, what is, like, it's so well done, very well explained. The production value is great. By the way, broke 2,000 live viewers, almost 200 likes on YouTube. So smash that like button. Help us break 250 likes within the first 45 minutes of the show. But what do you guys think about this? I mean, look, it wasn't too long ago, like 4 or 5 years ago, where Larry Fink was like, Bitcoin is an index of money laundering. Fast forward 5 years, number go up technology. And not only is he personally advocating for it on legacy financial media, but now they're making up production videos to explain Bitcoin to their clients, which I find absolutely hilarious. So Nick, what's your take on this, man? You were talking about this earlier.
Yeah, of course. I wrote a little take on it on Bitcoin Magazine this morning, but this is like, this ad, later in the ad, they say one thing specifically. They focus on talking about Bitcoin in its current state today. And they say almost word for word if I'm not mistaken. They say that Bitcoin is no longer the radical idea it was 15 years ago. Today, over 500 million people in the world use crypto, and over half of that is specifically Bitcoin. So this to me just signaled, hey, this is an $11.5 trillion asset manager. This is the largest asset manager in the world. There's nobody bigger than BlackRock. And they're signaling to everybody saying, hey, this is important. This is worth your time and attention. and you should be buying it. And one of the even more interesting things to me is, the BlackRock, that they have an ETF, and this ETF is the most successful ETF launch in history. There's never been an ETF launch like this. And if you look at the comparison between BlackRock's and really the total net inflows for all the Bitcoin ETFs combined, you compare them to the gold ETFs. I mean, it just blows them out of the water. It's really no comparison. There is so much demand for this asset, and that's why it really interests me seeing BlackRock. The first thing they do in these commercials is they talk about Bitcoin being used peer to peer. Like, let's say, it kind of feels like they're talking about it specifically in like developing countries, and they say all these really good things about this asset, but the people buying the BlackRock ETF are not getting, they're not allowed to use Bitcoin in that way, because they're just really holding the security. They're holding the security of the commodity. They're just holding shares of an ETF, while BlackRock goes and actually buys the Bitcoin and custodies it with like Coinbase or whatever. The people buying the ETF actually don't get those benefits of what makes Bitcoin freedom money, which I think is really interesting. But the way they market this to their target audiences is like, I think it's genius. I mean, you look at the video and they talk about, if you go and watch the full video from start to finish, they talk about how money has changed over time from seashells and other stuff, and they transition it all the way to today. And it's like, all I can think of is like, they're all reading the Bitcoin. They must just all be reading the Bitcoin Standard in their office. They definitely took a page out of Saifedean's book there, and they found a way to distill it down into something that's easily digestible. That, I mean, I can see like my grandpa watching that video and saying, okay, like I totally understand Bitcoin now. I can see my parents and their neighbors and their friends watching that video and saying, okay, that makes a lot of sense. Especially with the weight of their words behind this. Like, me saying all this stuff about Bitcoin means nothing to a lot of these people. But if you have the BlackRocks, you have the Fidelities, you have these big, large traditional asset managers shilling Bitcoin in this simple, easy, digestible way, I mean, like, it's just brilliant. I really think that the average retail investor probably still thinks Bitcoin's a scam and they're not getting into it. But all the people who are actually paying attention, the wealthy investors, they're taking notice of this and they're aping into the ETF. I think they're probably buying spot Bitcoin. I know people personally, like, I live in like a decently wealthy part of town, and I have friends who advise people here in Nashville on Bitcoin. And I mean, there's just like big money coming in and saying, hey, how do I get, exposure to this? How do I go buy it? Like, I had a friend set up a guy with Unchained Capital, and he like instantly bought just like hundreds of thousands worth of Bitcoin. And now he's trying to ape in, hundreds of thousands more. Like, these are people you would never see on Bitcoin Twitter. They're not on Bitcoin Twitter. They're too busy doing, they're running their business. They're investing full time. They're living their personal lives. Like, these big, sharks in the water are gobbling up a lot of Bitcoin, and they're not saying anything about it publicly. So BlackRock, Fidelity, all these big, large institutional investors, or asset managers, I should say, putting really their confidence in Bitcoin that it will succeed long term is like incredibly bullish.
I'll 100% agree with you, man. It's the legitimization of Bitcoin, in the eyes of traditional finance, and that's really what BlackRock did. Really pushing forward this ETF, and they didn't want to approve it. Gary Gensler was like dragging his feet, and not to mention it was just, the launch of it was just botched. Apparently his account was hacked, and then the volatility spiked up and down, and then the next day they approved it. Like, it was just, it was crazy. But of course, this is the weight of BlackRock. This is the largest asset manager in the world. They have so much influence, and when they are publicly supporting Bitcoin, I agree with you, Nick. It is a massive deal. It's a giant rubber stamp of approval. And you see a lot of people that perhaps doubted Bitcoin before. Now they're saying, they're like, if BlackRock's saying, okay, like this thing's probably not going anywhere. This thing's probably legit. And one of the things that you mentioned at the beginning, you buried the lead there, which was the Bitcoin ETF, even though it was butchered, and this was not like, the market, this was the government and the agencies. The launch of it's still the most popular ETF launch of ever in history, which is extremely, extremely exciting. Anyways, Opti, quick take on this. What's your opinion, my friend, before we move on to the news?
Yeah, I mean, just kind of to echo what Nick was saying, literally we had someone in the chat, like in the beginning of the show, saying something on the lines like, oh, imagine taking financial advice from 2 YouTubers. Like, what kind of idiots is that? And it's like that Blackrock video proves the point to what we've been talking about. It's like, look, you can listen to 2 idiots on YouTube. We've been in Bitcoin for a while. I think we have a pretty good grasp of where the future is going in money. Or, you go listen to Blackrock, because we're all saying essentially the same thing. And like Nick was saying, it is super interesting to hear Blackrock do their little, 3-minute video. It sounds boring to us because we're just so used to the information. But for a lot of people out there, they still have this idea that Bitcoin is like a scam, or, it's internet nerd money or speculative asset or whatever. But ever since Blackrock, put the stamp of approval on it, it is legitimizing it in the eyes of people. And so if people watch that, like Nick was saying, there is a part in that essentially saying there's 500 million people in the crypto space. Half of them are in Bitcoin, essentially betting that in the future, Bitcoin is going to get bigger. And yes, to us, it's like whatever. But having the largest institutional manager in the world put their stamp of legitimacy on Bitcoin, explaining it to all of their customers, like this is extremely bullish for obviously the price of Bitcoin, but hopefully more people understanding what the Bitcoin network is. And I mentioned this at the very beginning of this year when the ETF was launched, that now we have Blackrock, all, you can argue otherwise, but the smartest people educating some of the richest high net worth individuals about Bitcoin, and they're all going to ape in. Like, if this doesn't get you bullish that we are maturing as an asset class, that Bitcoin is starting to take over the world, I don't know what else will, because now people are getting the information digestible. It's not on, shitty podcasts. It's not in books. It's in a 3-minute video with the official stamp of Blackrock. So yeah, you send this to your mom or your uncle or your, brother or whatever that thinks you're an idiot. And it's like, hey, yeah, maybe I'm an idiot and you don't listen to me, but hey, go listen to Blackrock. They're talking about the evolution of money. They're betting the horse that Bitcoin's going to go up, that Bitcoin is here to stay. And I think that's extremely bullish. It just really is a confirmation to everything we've been saying for years. So you don't want to listen to 2 YouTubers on Bitcoin, that's fine. You could go listen to Blackrock, but we are all saying the same thing. Bitcoin's here. You need to get off zero, and that's how you win.
100%. I 100% agree with that. It's very, very exciting. I'm super excited for 2025. I think it's going to be an amazing year. I think we were let down in 2021 because of the China mining ban and FTX and the rehypothecation. But the regulatory environment, the institutional interest, of course, Michael Saylor with the MicroStrategy strategy, all the stars and planets are aligning for potentially an explosive 2025. And I think people are going to be very, very happy about it. So anyways, guys, we're going to hit the news segment. We will be right back.
I want to give a very special shout out to our sponsor, Compass Mining. They make Bitcoin mining accessible to everyone, from beginners to experienced investors. Their turnkey miners gets you online and hashing within 48 hours, making it easier than ever to start your mining journey. Plus, with their active marketplace, you can resell your miner at any time, adding flexibility and value to your investment. Visit their website to access a wealth of resources, learning everything you need to know about Bitcoin mining. Take your first step into the world of Bitcoin mining with confidence. Discover more at compassmining.io. Again, compassmining.io, and see how Compass Mining can power your success. I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Foundation. It's self-custody done right. They built a premium grade hardware wallet called Passport right here in the US, and it integrates seamlessly with their free app called Envoy. Passport is fully open source and verifiable. It's the most intuitive Bitcoin wallet design with a UX reminiscent of a classic feature phone, so you'll know how to navigate it and use it the moment you pick it up. It's also air-gapped, meaning Bitcoin stays offline, never touching an internet connection. It's Bitcoin only, open source verifiable, air-gap security model, gorgeous design craft, premium grade materials. Get your Bitcoin off exchanges and into your own hands in just a few minutes with Passport at foundation.xyz/simply. Get peace of mind for your peace of.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, before we start the news, Opti is not on a phone call right now. He's actually holding the Passport by Foundation devices. It's extremely easy to use. This is a perfect gift to give to somebody that perhaps is a little bit intimidated by self-custody. The Passport does not sacrifice security for convenience. Get yourself a Passport by Foundation devices today. Not your keys, not your cheese. Promo code SIMPLY to get a discount. Anyways, Opti, it's not a phone. But so
new phone, who dis?
Let's talk about this because I think it's a very important discussion and topic, and I do want to give a shout out to Nick and the Bitcoin Magazine team. We played our part here at Simply, held it down in YouTube land, but essentially, this was a very important election. It's a very, very important election. I think Bitcoiners inherently don't like politics. They're very they're very cautious of the state. They're very they just don't like it. And we got a lot of heat for it from a lot of Bitcoiners, a lot of people that are viewing our show, because we basically got to a point where and I tried to stay neutral for as long as possible until they locked up the Samurai Wallet guys, until the continuation of Operation Choke Point 2.0. It was released on documents that essentially there was literally pressure being put on banks to debank Bitcoin and crypto companies just because they were Bitcoin and crypto companies, right? It was horrific. So it got to a point where it was look, our industry is under attack. We have to speak up. We have to say something. And now Bitcoiners essentially become part of the donor class. And you could make a big argument that part of the reason that Kamala Harris lost that election was because she essentially, if you're under the age of 35, there's a 60% chance that you have exposure to Bitcoin and crypto. It's probably not a good idea to go after part of your voting demographic, right? So why am I telling you this? Why am I, teeing all this up? Because this news broke today, and something I was mentioning earlier. SEC Commissioner Caroline Crenshaw, who voted against spot Bitcoin ETFs, will not be renominated to her position after Senate Banking Committee cancels vote. Fox Business, bye-bye. Well, that's hilarious. Of course, this comes with the news of Gary Gensler, quitting the day of Donald Trump's inauguration. So he's sticking to the very end. But the elections have consequences. I know we all want to live in the world of the sovereign individual where you believe that essentially politics don't matter. There's going to be essentially nation state arbitrage. You'll be able to go to more favorable jurisdictions and all that stuff. But we don't live in that world yet. We're still in this transitionary period, and elections do have consequences. And I think that this election was extremely positive for Bitcoiners, the Bitcoin industry, and the Bitcoin regulatory environment here in the United States, allowing Bitcoin entrepreneurs to build without any fear of repercussions. And the last thing that I'll say too is why is the government in the business of going after entrepreneurs, going after businesses? That's not what that's not the role of government. The role of government is to protect private property, act kind of like a referee in markets to some extent, and and essentially protect your safety. That's it. That's the role of government. It's been Frankensteined and it's grown immensely because of the fiat money printer, because the fiat money printer essentially allows them to spend endlessly with absolutely no check on that spending, because they don't have to just rely on direct tax revenue. They can just if there's a deficit, in the United States, a $1.7 trillion deficit in 2023, how did they pay for that? They printed the difference, but it ain't free. It's a wealth redistribution mechanism from the lower middle classes that don't have the means to save in assets to back to the government and back to the wealthy. But the wealthy are getting PSYOP too, because even though their real estate prices are going up, even though the asset prices are going up, the purchasing power stays the same, right? So let's end inflation. Let's end this taxation without representation. And I think we are one step closer to that with the election of Donald Trump. Nick, I know you guys did a tremendous job on not only getting Trump, but also RFK. I believe you guys got Tulsi at one of the Bitcoin conferences. And I know that you've been covering this subject tremendously. And I believe actually Bitcoin Magazine had coverage live from the RNC itself, from the RNC convention. So what's your take on this? What do you believe are the consequences of this election? What do you foresee? What are going to be the benefits towards the price of Bitcoin and the Bitcoin industry for the next 4 years at least?
Yeah. I mean, when it comes to the presidential election specifically, I do think that there were voter issues that, there were issues that voters cared a lot more about. Like obviously, like abortion was a huge one. Immigration was a huge one. I do think that Bitcoin is an asset class that, or I should say an issue that is becoming more and more and more important. And I feel like this is the first time that the power of this industry has really been shown. I don't know if you guys remember, but like a few years ago when I believe it was the infrastructure bill, they wanted to pass this huge infrastructure bill. And there was verbiage in that bill that showed that they were trying to classify nodes as like money transmitters or something. It was something that would have been like honestly really bad for the industry. I think it eventually did pass, but I think I have to go back and fact check myself on this. It might have got overturned, or it can be overturned, but that bill essentially got held up for 2 weeks in a row strictly because Bitcoiners wouldn't allow it to get passed. They kept calling their representatives in DC and advocating for that verbiage to be taken out or changed. And ever since that day, I noticed so many politicians starting to twerk and simp for Bitcoiners, because I think they really realized, holy crap, like this is like a serious voter block. And I really think the power of our industry was shown this year. I really do think with, 100 million plus people who owns, either Bitcoin or crypto in this country. I hate saying crypto, but like, they are voting for, pro Bitcoin stuff. So I guess it's fine to include them in saying that. But you had Donald Trump really recognize that, hey, this is like a serious industry. This is a serious asset. Like these are serious people. These are people who are probably akin to like they're not going to budge on this. Like, Christians is a voter block that they're not budging on their beliefs. People who believe in the Second Amendment, like they're not budging on this belief. All right. The NRA, they're not budging on their beliefs. I think Bitcoin is going to be entering into that level of a voter block, and we're going to be seeing, we have huge political power now after this election. Donald Trump came to PubKey in New York City to just, he did everything he could to appeal to Bitcoiners. He came to the Bitcoin conference. He invited me and Mike Germano out to the RNC in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And I got to walk on the floor with all the congressmen and the senators, and I got to meet all of them. And, I'm having one of my friends who happened to be at the RNC. He was escorting me around. Actually, Marsha Blackburn's son, Senator Marsha Blackburn, who is also huge into Bitcoin, her son, Chad Blackburn, shout out to Chad. He was escorting me around the RNC and introducing me to all these congressmen and senators. And believe it or not, they all knew of the Bitcoin conference. They all had heard of Bitcoin Magazine and what, we as a community were doing for Donald Trump and helping him get reelected into office. So they were all super bullish on it. They were all very excited. The knowledge gap, there is a knowledge gap there. They weren't super educated on Bitcoin, but I think that's totally fine. Like there's a lot of people who I've seen really attack Donald Trump and say like, oh, he's not like a proper Bitcoin maxi. He doesn't understand it, and therefore he's a bad president. He's a bad person. Like it really doesn't matter. What this is something I've been telling some of like my coworkers who have disagreed with me on this is like, that's kind of what you want. I think in a U.S. president is like, all Donald Trump is going to do is he's going to make a regulatory friendly environment and allow the people in this industry to just build whatever they want, really go for it. He's probably giving us a lot more leeway than he probably should. Like, like getting rid of like all, both of the people who left the SEC, Caroline Kreshnaw, I think I said her last name wrong, but then the other guy, these are both Democrats who voted against approving the spot ETFs. Like, these are both anti-Bitcoin people. Gary Gensler was anti-Bitcoin, really, for the most. I mean, you could argue pro or against, but I think he was anti-Bitcoin. And the only reason this thing got passed or got approved was because we literally had to drag them through a court case when they kept denying these ETFs that should have been approved years ago. And I think with all the Republican support, it's like immense. It's insane. I don't think they fully understand it either. At least some of them do, but some of them don't. Some of them just lump Bitcoin in with crypto, and they're kind of giving a lot of crypto stuff a free pass when they really probably shouldn't. So it'll be really interesting to see how they handle that and how the industry grows from that, because I really do think a lot of crypto crap is getting a free pass, but we'll see what happens. But I think it is really causing the Democrats to completely change their shift. From kind of like the insider view looking out is like, Donald Trump was coming to the conference. He was very involved. He was doing all this pro Bitcoin stuff. And like, we tried to get Kamala to the conference. We really tried. She was debating it. And then eventually she backed out and said that she wasn't coming. So, you kind of I think a lot of Bitcoiners realized during this election is like, this Biden-Harris regime has done nothing but attack the industry. They've put people behind bars. They've, continued with Operation Choke Point 2.0. They've done all these horrible things. And it's like, you really think if this person gets into office that they're just going to all of a sudden revert and change that? Like, no, they've done Kamala Harris had done absolutely nothing to show her support for the industry. I don't think she's on record publicly, written or video wise, even saying the word Bitcoin. I can't find anything of that. And if you can find that, please send it to me, because I would love to see what she says about it. But these people, they followed the advice of Elizabeth Warren. Elizabeth Warren literally led them down a path that was the wrong path. The Democrats paid the price for it. And now I honestly believe you will start to see like some of the more traditional Democrats, I think, will continue on this. They have Bitcoin derangement syndrome. They have Trump derangement syndrome. They're going to be anti-Bitcoin forever unless something radical happens. But you have Democrats like Ro Khanna who really want to embrace Bitcoin. You have other Democrats as well who really want to embrace Bitcoin. So I do think you will see a tide turn there, and they will start to be more pro Bitcoin over time. How pro Bitcoin will they be? I don't know. I can't imagine them ever encouraging people to, hold their own keys and stuff like the Republicans are, but we'll see. I am thoroughly impressed with how this past year has went and how much power we as an industry have in the political landscape of the United States.
Absolutely. And it just happened so fast too. I knew that inevitably this was going to be a political discussion, but Opti and I, when we were talking about this, we were predicting like 2028, but it all happened so fast. And it was really a drop ball by the Democratic Party, because essentially by going after the industry, they created an opportunity for the opposing political party to capitalize on like, look, if you're going to attack a portion of your voter base, like, okay, come to us. We'll represent it. We'll support it. And shout out to, David Bailey for talking with the Trump team and kind of really educating them on this. And I saw a speech from Trump's son, Eric Trump, at Bitcoin Mina, and it was incredible. Like, he knows exactly what this Bitcoin thing is. So yeah, and I can't believe it.
I don't want to cut you off, but like that speech genuinely felt sincere. It genuinely felt like he took the time to understand this asset and the importance of it. It's not, he wasn't just reading off a teleprompter. You know, someone told him, hey, you should say this because it'll resonate with your audience. It was kind of like, this is an important asset. He understands it and he wants America to embrace it, because I feel like they genuinely want what's best for America, and not like, in my opinion, what the Democrats want. And that's just a power grab for, you know, themselves. Really, they don't really give a crap about the future of America.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, look, like, their actions speak louder than words, I think, fundamentally, right? Anyways, Opti, quick take before we get onto the culture segment and talk all things Nicholas Hoffman. What's your take, Opti?
Yeah, I mean, I fully agree with Nick. I'm cautiously optimistic about what 2025 is going to bring. As we've been covering throughout the whole year, we've seen that there has been a lot of rhetoric to be pro Bitcoin, or rather, you know, pro crypto friendly. And so I also think we're definitely going to see better regulation than we've seen in the past 4 years. And my cautiousness is kind of revolving around, you know, politicians love to make laws, and I just hope that they don't kind of push some stuff through that seems friendly towards Bitcoin, but actually hampers Bitcoin in the future. And so, like, that's kind of what I'm seeing. But as we've been seeing and covering the last couple of months, we're seeing that the conversation around Bitcoin has fundamentally changed, and a lot of people that are in positions of power are definitely pro Bitcoin. And so I think this is good. Like, really, realistically, as a Bitcoiner, as someone that believes in the idea of separating money from state, all I really want is for them to get out of our way. And Nick kind of said that with the, you know, they're giving us a lot of leeway. And I just really hope they, you know, don't try to enact stuff that actually will hurt us and we kind of cheer along our own demise. But as long as they get out of our way, let us build, you know, let Bitcoin do its thing, then I think this is going to be a good thing, comparing and contrasting that to what we've seen in the last 4 years, where they've been actively fighting us and kind of trying to stop or dampen Bitcoin adoption. So I think 2025 and into 2029 is going to be very, very good for Bitcoin in America. So I'm also very optimistic about where we're going, and I think it's great. It's obviously a shift in the Overton window, and now it's becoming very clear that you can't just fight Bitcoiners. You can't just say anti-Bitcoin rhetoric and get away with it, because as Nico keeps saying, elections have consequences, and let's not forget that there are a lot of Bitcoiners around the world. I'm just reminded of the Fight Club meme where it's like, we run the nodes, we hold the Bitcoin, we get you elected. Like, we're everywhere, and that's the beauty of Bitcoin.
Absolutely. Guys, there's 2,600 of you guys watching live, 550 of you guys watching live alone on just YouTube. We're about to hit our 250 like goal, so let's move up that goal to 300 likes. So if you guys are enjoying the show so far, make sure to smash that like button. Of course, share the video. Guys, we're going to hit the culture. We will be right back.
I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, HIVE Digital Technologies. As the first ever public miner, HIVE's been battle tested through every possible market. And as the first with an AI strategy, HIVE continues to redefine the future of sustainable energy. Also, gotta casually drop this in here, HIVE consistently tops the industry in Bitcoin mined per exahash. They're lean and mean, they're green and clean, and they're changing the game. Learn more by following them at HIVE Digital Tech, or check out their website, hivedigitaltech.com.
All right, everybody, I do want to give a shout out to our sponsor, BitBlockBoom. It's going to be a Bitcoin conference April 3rd to the 6th in Dallas, Texas. You do want to get your tickets quickly before the prices increase in 21 days. And if you use promo code BBB, 21, you will get a $100 discount. The entire Simply Bitcoin crew will be there. Opti, Rustin, Dante, Jacob, Sophie, and of course the Twitter Zoomer crew as well. So guys, you definitely don't want to miss this Bitcoin conference. It's going to be one of the best Bitcoin conferences of the year, and hope to see you guys in Dallas, Texas of next year. All right, everybody. So I do want to open up this conversation. We got Nicholas Hoffman in the house. Nicholas goes way back with me and Opti. Kind of like, look, like we all kind of got into the industry roughly around the same time, and we're all taking like different paths, and our careers have grown, and so many things have just changed, and come so far too. We were talking in Discord chats, like 5-6 years ago. We were just talking about Bitcoin. I'd go on rants, Opti would go on rants, Nick would go on rants. And, many years later, we come here. And, of course, me and Opti are building this small business. And then, Nick's at, the leading Bitcoin media publication in the world, Bitcoin Magazine. And he's the head of news over there. And he's done an incredible job, not only running their Twitter handle, but also, dropping some articles, which are incredibly well written, man. So, and you recently just announced, and this is why I want to bring Nicholas on the show. I'm used to calling you Nick, man. I apologize. I want to bring Nicholas on the show today because he recently launched a personal handle, which I highly recommend, following, because Nicholas has cracked the X algos. He's an expert in that. It's at Nicholas Hoff. You can go follow it on X right now. It's growing extremely quickly. And, you'll find some awesome kind of daily news aggregator posts about what's happening, the latest and greatest things happening in the industry. So, Nick, the floor is yours, man. It's been a long time, bro. We've known each other quite a long time now. I remember Bitcoin 2021, the first major Bitcoin conference. We were on stage in Miami together, on this panel, why Bitcoin maximalism is necessary. And man, it's come such a long way, dude. Such a long way, and so many memories, and I think the best is yet to come. I'm super excited about the future, our careers, just life in general. But wanted to have you back on the show today, talk a little bit about that, and just talk about this X account that you recently just launched.
Yeah, I mean, it's been definitely a long journey. I think we all the three of us started talking in 2017, 2018. On Twitter. And it's funny, over on in my kitchen in my apartment, when you walk in, I have a giant poster printed out of you, me, Svetsky, Dr. Bitcoin MD, and Young Lurk on stage at the Bitcoin conference in Miami, where we got on the cover of Rolling Stone. That was one of the coolest things that's ever happened to me, and I'm glad you got to be a part of that as well. It's just been a wild ride. I mean, talking about, what we were talking about at the very beginning of the show when we were talking about stacking more Bitcoin. I mean, I used to drive my old car, and my old car broke down, and instead of fixing my car, I used to jimmy rig it every day with a screwdriver because I didn't want to fix the car because Bitcoin was $3,000. It would have costed $1,000 to fix. I'm I'm not paying a third of a Bitcoin to fix this old car. I'm just gonna fix it when it's higher. And then I ended up fixing it when it was 10K, I think. So I got a much better deal on that. But life has changed a lot. I know, your life has changed a lot as well. I don't really know where I'm going with this, but it's, I kind of just started that account to grow it more, get more of my personal brand out there. I've played a big role in growing Bitcoin Magazine, in growing their social media, growing them as a brand. I've written 450 articles for them or something like that. I've played a key part in growing, Bitcoin conference social as well. And just over the years, just kind of being more of a public facing person for Bitcoin Magazine. And now I'm just kind of focused on growing my own account personally as well, while I'm here growing Bitcoin Magazine. So it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So many memories. And I think you've done an incredible job, man. I think that when you took over the Bitcoin Magazine handle, I believe it was at 300,000 followers. And Now it's currently at roughly, what is it, like 3 or 4 million. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's like I took it over at like 500K followers, and then we're at like 3.4 something million right now. So it's been a lot of fun. I've had a lot of help from people with that. It hasn't been completely all me. So shout out to like Pete Rizzo, shout out to Namcios, Alex McShane, Vivek, people who have contributed to that as well. Yeah, man, it's been a lot of fun. I every day I wake up and I'm amazed I get to do this for a living all day every day. So it's like I'm definitely very fortunate to be in the position that I'm in. I definitely try not to take it for granted, and I try and just give it my all every single day.
Absolutely, man. It's surreal. Opti and I have this conversation all the time. I'm like, dude, we somehow made a business about talking, literally talking about Bitcoin, and which is so surreal, And so I completely understand that feeling, Nick. And like I said, man, I'm doubling down. I think the best is yet to come. I'm looking forward for this hyper Bitcoinized world, and I think when that happens, the need for Bitcoin media is just going to continue to increase. So this is a different worldview, man. It's a different worldview. Once you've taken the orange pill, kind of like, because what you see is like kind of liberal commentary and then conservative commentary. I think Bitcoin commentary is like the evolution of that, right? Because Bitcoin, it's the theory from the sovereign individual, right? Like, I think information technologies, like the disintermediation of information via social media and the disintermediation of money via Bitcoin, is going to fundamentally change the world. The relationship between the individual and the state, it's going to radically change. And I think people are going to want that worldview as they adopt Bitcoin as their standard, right? So Opti, I mean, not only, like, of course, me and Nick go way back, but you guys go way back. I'm absolutely sure that I'm absolutely sure that like there's viewers that are currently watching right now that are fans of Bitcoin Kindergarten, right? And they remember Bitcoin Kindergarten, which has been kind of discontinued these days. But what do you think about that?
Yeah, well, the BK alumni network is very strong. If you know, it's just very interesting that we kind of to what Nick was saying, we all kind of fell into this and we just loved what we were doing. And it's very crazy for us to actually continue to do this. And I mean, Nick pretty much like quit college to go all in on it. And we literally reference Nick all the time when we're talking to younger kids. It's like, the opportunity cost is very high right now, and there's a very huge opportunity in Bitcoin. But I actually might kind of want to pivot this away from just talking about us, because Nick is, on the front lines for Bitcoin media. I would say you have a great grasp of what's going on in the Bitcoin space. And so personally, I kind of want to talk to you about the strategic Bitcoin reserve bill and all the stuff going on, because you have probably a little more inside view on what's going on. You cover it every single day like we cover it. So I didn't actually ask you this before the show, so I don't mean to put you on the spot, bro. But like, what is your thoughts going around the whole Bitcoin strategic reserve? Obviously, how it might get implemented, but also the impact and the waves and the ripple effects that it's made around the world.
Yeah. One of the things that, so there's two ways they can go about it. And I think Nick Carter touched on this like a little bit yesterday. It's like they can implement a strategic Bitcoin reserve. And I think when most people think that, they think of Cynthia Lummis's bill of, taking the 200K in Bitcoin we already have and then buying another 1 million BTC over the course of the next 5 years. Will that happen, or will we get just Trump saying, okay, we're going to make this strategic Bitcoin reserve. I'm going to take, the 200K Bitcoin we have right now, if we still have it, unless the Democrats have sold it. It's unclear whether they've sold it or not, but because they had recently moved it and Arkham Intelligence flagged that they were moving it to Coinbase for something. So did they sell it? I don't know, but let's just assume they have 200K Bitcoin that they seized from Silk Road and other stuff. He could easily just say, okay, this is our strategic Bitcoin reserve. We're not going to sell it. And then that's it. That is, I feel like, the bare minimum, which will probably happen. But Cynthia Lummis is really pushing for this bill that she introduced at the Bitcoin conference in Nashville earlier this summer, and that would see the U.S. government buy up to 1 million Bitcoin over the next 5 years. And it's like, that would be absolutely insane. There's a lot of rumors going around the world of, I should say there's a lot of rumors going around that other countries around the world are now feeling the FOMO for this. And I've seen a lot of names be thrown around. I've seen a lot of countries be thrown around. Like, I saw somebody tweet out like a long list of all these countries that were considering adopting actual BTC reserve. The only countries I've seen, obviously, the United States, El Salvador already has theirs, and it's done tremendously well. I saw the Polish presidential candidate. I forgot his name. Can't pronounce it either. He pledged to create a BTC strategic reserve if elected president. I saw a state Duma member in Russia tell the finance minister, hey, we need to be looking into this and you need to push this to the higher ups. There's been no more information after that, so it's unclear if that proposal was taken seriously or not. You had legislation proposed in Brazil for this as well, again, in lower chambers of the government, but it is something that is being introduced. Will it actually come to fruition and happen? I don't know. There are tons of bills that are introduced all the time. I see, I watch a lot of the Congress hearings. I watch the Senate hearings. I see individual state representatives introduce bills. It's a lot more bills introduced than actually signed into law. There's a lot more that goes into it. I think a lot of Bitcoiners get very optimistic whenever a bill is introduced, because I think there's a large lack of understanding of, just because a bill is introduced doesn't mean it's going to get signed into law, and it doesn't get signed into law soon. So I would say remain not cautious, but I'd say maybe adjust your expectations on what might or might not happen. Personally, I am bullish on it potentially happening, but I would love to be a fly on the wall and hear more. I want to know the support from Congress in this. I want to know the support from the Senate in this, because obviously you see Bitcoiners on Twitter like Cynthia Lummis and other senators talking about this, but does it really have enough support to actually pass? I don't know. I guess we'll know when the time comes, when the bill, they're actively voting on the bill and discussing the bill and moving forward with it or not. So I'm kind of holding my breath on the Cynthia Lummis's bill of buying 1 million Bitcoin. I definitely think Trump will for sure at least make, the 200K Bitcoin we have a strategic reserve. I think that's super easy for him to do. He's kept all of his promises in Bitcoin so far. I don't really see why he wouldn't do that. But obviously what we want is them buying that 1 million BTC. And one thing that I would like to touch on is, like, a lot of people say, well, that's really stupid to say, because the whole point of Bitcoin is to separate money from state, where it's like, well, if you actually think out the logical flow of, mass Bitcoin adoption, it's like, do you really think only plebs are going to be adopting this thing? Like, do you really think if Bitcoin is going to succeed, that governments are just going to stop by and say, oh, well, our hands are tied, we're not going to buy it? No, of course they're going to adopt it. Of course they're going to buy it. I think I just don't think that argument is very valid. I think, them buying Bitcoin can potentially be a good thing. Obviously, it's a good thing for the price, but it's how do you take advantage of that to your own personal benefit?
Agreed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wait, Nico, I do want to do one thing.
I got a hard stop. I got a meeting.
Okay. Then really quick, Nick, I want you to speculate. We used to do this on BK. What is the top of the Bitcoin bull run in 2025?
You're going to hate me for saying this, but I actually gave up making price predictions in 2021. After that absolute pathetic bull market in 2021, I was like, I am going to level set my expectations. I'm not going to make any more big price predictions, and I'm just going to go with the flow on a daily basis.
Smart.
Yeah. I agree. I feel very optimistic about 2025. But anyways, guys, this was Simply Bitcoin Live for December 18, 2024. I'm your host, Nico. It's my legendary co-host, Optimus Fields. And our special guest for today, Nicholas Hoffman. Go follow his personal X account at Nicholas Hoff and go give him a follow for the latest and greatest Bitcoin news. All right, everybody. Love you all. We'll see you on the next one. Peace out, everybody.
Today's episode was brought to you by BitcoinWell.com, a Bitcoin-only platform on a mission to enable financial independence.